So today I'm going to show you how to make a chocolate Kit Kat cake. So you need 3 8-inch tins, can be 2, you just need to cook it for a bit longer. 100 grams of unsalted butter, 260 grams of caster sugar, 2 eggs, half a teaspoon of vanilla paste, 45 grams of cocoa powder, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder and 3/4 of a teaspoon of bicarb of soda, a pinch of salt, 170 grams of flour and 160 grams of whole milk, and that's just for the cake. We'll go through that part first before attempting the buttercream. But what you need for the buttercream is 350 grams of quality chocolate, so that's 70% cocoa, roughly 70% cocoa, 230 grams of unsalted butter, half a tablespoon of milk and half a tablespoon of vanilla paste and 250 grams of icing sugar. And you also need some delicious Kit Kats. They're going to be your main centerpiece of the cake and what you're going to put around it, so make sure you get enough to go around the cake. So the first thing you need to do is put your butter and sugar in your mixing bowl. And you don't have to, I've got a KitchenAid mixer, but you don't have to, you can just use a hand whisk and a glass or plastic bowl or whatever. So put your butter and sugar in there and just whisk it until it's nice and creamed and sort of light and fluffy. And you want to preheat your oven to 170. So you cream the butter and sugar together until it's nice and light and fluffy, and it will kind of look like that. And then what you want to do is add your eggs, your 2 eggs, one at a time. So add 1 egg, mix it, scrape the sides of the bowl down, mix it some more, then add the other egg and scrape the sides of the bowl down and give it another mix. And a top tip with your eggs, crack them into a little ramekin to pour into the bowl, just in case you get any bits of shell in it. And if you do get any shell in it, you can get it out with another piece of shell, kind of cuts through the egg white. But then your mixture kind of comes out looking like that, like a bit sort of custardy, bit of a sort of eggy custard. So then before you put your mixer back on the stand, you want to add in your vanilla paste, half a teaspoon of vanilla paste, 45 grams of cocoa powder, 3/4 of a spoon of baking powder, 3/4 of a spoon of bicarb of soda and a pinch of salt. Just add it all in at once and then put it back on the mixer at slow speed. So then you should have a nice smooth chocolate paste. So remember to scrape the sides down and mix for a second time just to make sure you've got all the ingredients in there. And now you need to get your milk and your flour ready. So you measure out 160 millilitres of whole milk and 170 grams of plain flour, and make sure you sieve the flour and just put them both in separate containers. Now you've measured out 160 mils of whole milk into a jug is easier for pouring, and 170 grams of plain flour. What you're going to do is you are going to add half the flour, then pour in all of the milk, and then add the other half of the flour. And then you're going to put it on to mix until you've got a nice smooth chocolate cake mix. One thing to say is when you put everything in the mixer, so that you don't turn it on and the flour flies everywhere, just pulse it like that a couple of times until it looks like it's starting to mix, and then you can put it on to mix fully. And there you have it, lovely smooth chocolate mix. And don't mix it so much that it starts to curdle. You will literally, at the end with the flour and the milk, only need to mix it for maximum 1 minute on high speed. And remember to scrape down the sides and then do a last little mix as well. So now you're ready to split that into your tins. So I always measure mine out with scales to make them equal. So it'll probably be about, I would guess, I'm going to use 2 tins. You can use 3 for some thinner sandwiches. Make sure you grease the tins with butter before you pour the mixture in. So just put a bit of butter in both, and then whiz it round like that. Just whiz it round with a bit of baking paper or greaseproof paper, whatever you've got, or your fingers, fine. So it's just the base and the sides are covered, because you don't want any of the mixture to stick to it, and then you won't be able to get it out of the pan. Et voila! Put the mixture in your tins and just spread them out with a little spatula knife, or you know, just any knife, and then a top tip is just to whack them on the side to get any bubbles out. So just give them a whack like this. That gets any bubbles out of the cake. And if you want a flat top on the cake, just create a little hole in the middle like that. So just like a dip in the icing in the middle. I don't know if you can see that there. And then that will give you a flat top when it's baked. So you've got your 2 cake tins, they're ready to go in the oven. Make sure your shelf in the oven is flat, because otherwise it's quite a liquidy mixture, otherwise it will cook wonky. So just make sure you put the tins in and they're nice and flush and flat, and then cook them at 170 for about 20 to 30 minutes. I tend to test it after about 20 minutes just to see if they're cooked. Just put a little fork in. If it comes out clean with crumbs on, it's cooked. If it comes out with liquid on, then it's still not cooked. You want to just put it in for a couple more minutes and then just keep doing that. Just keep testing it until it's cooked. Cooked sponges there, don't they look great? And then just set them aside to cool down. Cover them with a tea towel or something for about half an hour to an hour. Remember, for your buttercream, you want 350 grams of quality chocolate, 70% cocoa, 230 grams of unsalted butter, a tablespoon of milk, and a tablespoon of vanilla paste, and 250 grams of icing sugar. So what you're going to do first is melt your chocolate. You can do it in the microwave. Just put it on a high heat in a heat-proof bowl in the microwave for a minute or two until it is melted and smooth and glossy. But as we don't have room in this tiny kitchen for a microwave, I'm going to do mine in a little bain-marie. So I'll just get a saucepan, put a bit of water in it in the bottom, hot water, boiling water. You don't want to fill it up too much, because you don't want the water to touch the bottom of the bowl, because it will make the chocolate go a little bit burnt. So you just put that on the hob and turn it on, and then whilst that's boiling up, you can just measure out your 350 grams of chocolate. 50 grams of chocolate in a heat-proof bowl, and you're just going to whack that on top of the simmering pan. And just get a wooden spoon, keep an eye on it, and just keep stirring it until it's completely melted. Put your 230 grams of butter, 1 tablespoon of milk, 1 teaspoon of vanilla paste, and 250 grams of icing sugar in your mixing bowl, and then just mix them with the usual paddle attachment. If you don't have I was going to say UniAid. If you don't have a KitchenAid or an electronic mixer, you can just use your mixing bowl and God, lost my words. Electric whisk, that's the one. So once your chocolate is done, it's going to look all nice and glossy like that. Just make sure there's no big bits in it and that everything's melted, and then just set it to one side to cool slightly. And once you've got your butter, icing sugar, milk and vanilla paste in the mixer, just because it's got icing sugar in it, if you put it on high straight away, the icing sugar is going to go everywhere and cover everything in the kitchen. Things you didn't even know you had are going to get covered in icing sugar. So give it a pulse like we did before with the cake mixture. Give it a pulse like 10 times so that it sort of binds up before you put it on properly, and cover it in a tea towel so that the icing sugar doesn't go everywhere. Whilst that's mixing and the chocolate is cooling down, turn out one of your cakes onto however you're going to serve it, or in a tin or whatever. Turn out the first cake, put it in place so that you're ready to ice the middle a bit, and then you can put the top one on top of it. Take it out like that on your little thing, and then just run a knife underneath so that it comes away cleanly and there's no kind of chunks of cake missing. You've creamed all of that together, the other ingredients, pour half of the chocolate in. So just, it's cooled down slightly, so just pour some of it in. Might get a bit messy. And then put it back on to mix. Make it nice and chocolatey. And then just keep going, keep pouring the chocolate in until you get a consistency that you want. It might be a bit runny to start with, but if you just simply leave it beating for like 5-10 minutes, it will get, the consistency will get thicker. So when you've got a nice consistency that you like the look of, I haven't used all of my chocolate. I'm going to put some in the middle of the cake now and add some more of the chocolate and mix it some more, just so that the filling in the middle is not too runny. So I'm just going to dollop some on there. That's plenty. And then just whiz it round. I'll put a bit more in actually. Make it nice and thick. That's it. And then that's ready. So that's nice. That's all iced. So that's ready for you to put the top half of the cake on, so you can turn that out and pop that on, just like you did with the bottom one. And then you have your nice little sandwiched cake, beautiful. So now I've just added some more chocolate to my icing and I'm mixing it now. If you find at any point that it does get too runny, you can add some icing sugar in, just sieve some more icing sugar in, and that will stiffen it up. The icing's done, it's been mixing for about 5 minutes and it's just a really nice kind of fluffy consistency. It really smells like heaven. So even if I do say so myself. So just start to whack it on, and you want to get like a spatula, one of these things, palette knife, that's what it's called. Oh, I'm good today remembering stuff. So you want to use that to spread it round, and then to spread it on the sides as well. So just chuck it on, and that's what's gonna stick the Kit Kats to the side as well. So just kind of nice generous topping, because also the more generous you are with the topping, you're not going to see any crumbs coming through like you do with the middle layer. So just keep going round with your palette knife until it's like dropping off the edge, and then you can start going around the side as well, kind of like that. Then you can just do a little pattern on the top by, make sure you've got like really thick icing, and then just put your palette knife in the middle at an angle and just spin it round. So you're going round in circles, and just keep spinning and just scrape off the excess, and then you should end up with a nice little pattern. just a circular pattern like that. Don't worry too much about the sides because you're going to cover them up with Kit Kats. So just start going round and sticking them on. I like to make sure the words are going the same way. That's part of my OCD. But there you go. Oh, that's not the right way. You just keep going around and sticking them, and then don't worry if some come loose because we're just going to tie them. The finishing touch will be just sort of tying it up with a ribbon if you want to. They might just stay as they are, in which case you can just leave it as it is. Just keep going around and then just sort of give them a little pat. A delicious chocolatey chocolate Kit Kat cake. And top tip, so these cakes were made in 8-inch tins, and to go around the circumference of the cake I needed 22 finger Kit Kats, but always make sure you get some spare because undoubtedly some of them will turn up cracked or smashed, or you might want to eat one. There's a number of things you might want to do. Some people like to fill the centre with like M&Ms or Smarties or Maltesers or something like that, just to make it look extra special. I'm not going to do that today because I've spent a fortune on Kit Kats. And so another thing you can do is use a ribbon just to give it a little finishing touch. Just get a ribbon and just tie a little bow round. I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. There's loads more on my channel if you subscribe. There's a slightly simpler cake if you want to make a Victoria sponge. There's loads of stuff like how to make a cupcake bouquet, how to make Easter egg brownies, hot cross buns, how to cover a cake in fondant, all sorts. I recommend you subscribe. All right, have a good day.